Alright, g'day IB Psychologists. So in the previous video I explained these 7 steps I recommend for studying for paper 1, and that's getting ready for the short answer questions, right? And so now in this video I want to look at how do you add to that to get ready for the essays in section B. So here we go. Right, so if you remember, or if you haven't checked out the video, it's in the description. I would recommend watching the first video now before you watch this one about how to get ready for the SAQs. These are going to lay the foundation for you then to add the essays for part B. Just to quickly recap the steps, first of all, you want to find all the topics that could be part of or based on the exam question. Right, that's for the biological, cognitive, social, cultural approach. Then find one relevant example for each topic, then one study, one key term and definition, maybe 2 key terms if you need to, but focus on one. Write the key question that you want to answer for that particular topic if it does come up in the exam question, and then answer your key question. So you should find the answer to that key question, and then finally rewrite your notes. How do we then take this and take it to prepare for the essays? Well, first of all, the first thing you have to do is choose your approach. Okay, so in paper 1 for the short answer questions, you don't get a choice. There are 3 SAQs and you answer all 3. Now the secret to getting a 7, if you can master them, right? Aim for at least a 7 out of 9 for 21 marks in section A. Biological, cognitive, social, cultural. Now for the essay questions, there are 3 of those, 1 from bio, 1 from cog, 1 from social, cultural, but you get to choose. You only have to answer 1 essay question. Therefore, I don't think it's a good idea, it's definitely not a good idea, to prepare all of the topics for bio, social, cultural, and cognitive to essay level. You want to take one of those. Which one do you like? Now, a lot of people are going to ask me, well, what's my recommendation? Should I study the bio for the essay, the cog, the social, cultural? It's up to you. There are pros and cons. I would say, to quickly summarize, and I might make another video in more detail about this, the biological is the most predictable questions, but there's the most content, and arguably it's the most tricky content in that approach. The cognitive has fewer topics, but the critical thinking becomes really tricky. Evaluating the working memory model, reconstructive memory, trying to add critical thinking to those topics in the cognitive approach is very difficult. The social cultural approach is kind of a nice blend between the two, except for the high level students for the extension, you've got some real possible curveball questions there with how globalization fits into that. And so that's just a little bit of a tricky one. So really there's a little bit of risk involved in all of them. And so I would say, which one interests you the most, right? Which one do you want to spend your time studying, and go with that, okay? So actually for my students, I'm okay with them choosing one of all 3. I tend to push them towards bio and cognitive. Anyway, you want to choose one of those approach, biological, cognitive, social, cultural, right? The second thing, once you've done that, once you've got your approach, then you take your topics, right? And you've got your study. So the second step, I would add a study. So in your essay, you're still going to be writing about the relevant topic, and you're still going to have that one study per topic. And in fact, a good essay is actually going to begin with pretty much a really good short answer question. It's going to outline the topic, it's going to give a definition of the key term, it's going to give a good study to support it, and then I would add a second study. And I think it's okay to have a study that shows something similar. So for example, if you're looking at the biological approach, maybe here you've chosen a human study for the SAQs, maybe over here for your essay, you would add an animal study. That could be relevant. Or if you are looking at a theory or a cognitive theory, perhaps over here you've got a traditional, an older study, and then over here maybe you've got a more modern one, perhaps one that maybe looks at technology or what's happening in the brain while performing cognitive processes if it's relevant to that particular topic. Something like that, right? That helps us to show the topic, but might be also looking at it from a different perspective. So that's going to help you show more knowledge of the research. So choose the approach, add a study. Then after that, now what you need to get into is looking at your critical thinking. This is the key thing that's going to distinguish your essays or good essays from the rest, and it's one of the key differences between a short answer question and an essay. You want to have critical thinking. Okay, Now, for critical thinking, I recommend, and in fact for the essays, I've got another video where I talk about the 3 rules of 3. The 3 rules of 3 in essay writing, you've got 3 sections: your central argument, your study, and your counter arguments or your critical thinking. For the critical thinking, I recommend trying to aim for 3 points. So for adding your critical thinking, when you're taking your notes for these topics, try to come up with 3 separate points. Now, the first one you're going to begin with, I would say, because it's going to be relevant to almost any question, is evaluating one of your studies. And in actual fact, for 2 of these, you could probably you're going to use 2 studies, find a really good limitation for each study, okay? And when I say a really good limitation, I mean beyond just 1 sentence. This was a true experiment, so it lacks, or this is a laboratory experiment, so it lacks ecological validity. That's not a good, that's not a very well developed critical thinking point. You want to have a really nice paragraph, like a whole paragraph, 3 to 5 sentences, maybe longer, of a good explanation of how that's a limitation. And I've got other videos and blog posts where I explain that. So looking at adding your critical thinking, look at limitations of the studies, perhaps also looking at alternative explanations of that particular topic, or even alternative explanations of the results. If it's a theory or a model, you're looking at limitations of the theory or the model itself. So really here for critical thinking, you want to try to add 3 really well developed critical thinking points. And pretty much that's it. If you've got that, I think you're ready to write a really good essay, because you're going to have all of this preparation done for the short answer questions. Then you're going to have 2 studies that you can write about really well, 3 really well developed critical thinking points, and now you're on track to get a 16 out of 22 or a 17 out of 22 for an essay, maybe higher. And actually that's all you need. If you've done really good SAQs, a 16 or 17, you're well on track to a 7, which again, only about 3% of IB psychologists can do. So it's not easy, it takes a lot of hard work, but I like to think, keep things a little bit simpler, do less, right? So have less, but do it in more detail, go deeper, right? So that's the approach I try to recommend. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers how do you study for IB Psychology Paper 1. First of all, break it into 2 parts, SAQs, follow these steps, and then for the essays, choose one approach, and then add these steps. What you might want to do when you're taking your notes is have 2 sides of the paper. So on the one side, you've got your SAQ, flip it over, and on the other side, you've got the essay material. And, well, when you know it, that's also how I structured it in the revision guide for you. So all this has been done. So you can check that out, link in the description. And maybe here, if I figure out the editing, I can show you a page of what that looks like. Maybe I'll add the techniques to study the brain. Here on one side, you've got the notes for the SAQ. Notice how it focuses, how it has that structure I recommended in the previous video. And then on the reverse side, you've got the additional information in case you're studying that for an essay. Right, all right, okay, thank you and good luck.